Hello and welcome. Nice to have you back. I know it's just been a week since the last time we were together. We're making it a little bit closer this time because we had that special webcast a week or two ago about what was happening with Ukraine and the threat of Russian hackers going after stuff. And we're also kind of pressed up against the beginning of April because next week I'm actually teaching in Singapore, which is not a great time shift. I have to do this 12-hour time shift on Saturday. And right after that, I go away for a month. And my friend Jess Garcia has volunteered to step in. Today, actually, I'm right in the middle of teaching Sec 595. I actually stepped out of class to come and do this live stream and talk a little bit about Python environment. So that's actually what's still on the screen here. We just finished working on a lab where we build a neural network that can detect malware, zero-day malware at an 85 to 90% accuracy. So pretty cool stuff. Hey there, Austin Hadley. Nice to have you. And you too, Michelle. Thanks for being with us today. Well, what I'm talking about today, though, is not the detection of malware. That's, take Sec 595 for that. What I'm talking about today is using and working with Python virtual environments. And I'm not going to be using the Python venv. It's good. That's a good tool and all. It's just not what I use. Instead, I tend to use Anaconda and Miniconda. Now, I use Miniconda over on the Mac because I'm an M1 person. Hey there, Abhilash. Nice to have you from India. That's quite a long ways away. And what time is it for you there, man? It's got to be up there. It must be probably 7, 8 o'clock already. Hey there, Jorge. Nice to have you from Colombia. And Turkey. Nice to have you. I tend to use Anaconda and Miniconda. And I use Miniconda because on the M1, there is no Anaconda. So we use the Miniconda, which has all the same functionality. And honestly, let me just fire it up here. I'll bring up the Anaconda Navigator. I've already got it installed. I don't really use Anaconda Navigator at all. And I'm going to explain why that is. I'm going to show you that in just a minute. It does take a while to start. That's one of the reasons, but there's actually a bigger reason. I do like Miniconda and Anaconda over Python virtual environments, though, because one of the things that they do provide, that Anaconda and Conda provide, are these curated environments. Now, I do tend to do my installations using pip. So if I need to add in Pillow, or maybe I'm doing something with OpenAI Gem or something, I'm going to use pip to do that. But if I'm trying to get a fully stable environment for a particular thing, one of the great things about Anaconda is that it allows you to do Conda install, which has got sort of pre-built frozen ways to get that whole thing installed. So that's kind of a nice thing. There can be drawbacks too. I do have some other shout outs there. Hey there, Roy. Nice to have you from Utah. And Richard from Tokyo, one of my favorite places. My wife and I just love Japan. I haven't been there in a few years. I have to get back. Let me get rid of this. Don't remind me. Let me just say, don't show me again. Otherwise, it'll tend to just keep popping it up. So I said that you can do the Conda install, which is supposed to give you the most current, and it's all frozen. It all works. And that's generally true. But I've had some experience, especially with installing Jupyter through that, where it will sometimes give you a very old version of things. So I don't tend to use Conda install, which, I know for the Anaconda fans, that's like, oh, what do you mean you don't use that? Well, because I've run into these problems. But why do I use it at all? I mean, I'm on a Mac. Do I really need a virtual environment for that? Can't I just use the Python that's built in? Well, I could. Same thing on Linux. I could. But there's a huge possibility. Yeah, so that's the promise, right? So LinkedIn user, I can't see who you are, is that it gives you more stability than pip. But while that might be true, I don't want to sacrifice I want to use Jupyter Lab version 3, and to get stability, I'm sacrificing and going back to 1.7, which is extreme. And it's not usual that happens in many Conda installs, but it can happen, especially if it can't determine exactly what you have and it has to back off. Oh, sorry to hear that, Adam. I can't really help you with that one on this one, but sorry to hear that things didn't go well on the Gold Cup there. Anyway, why don't I use this interface? Now in this interface, obviously it's already installed. I'm right in my base. I can just click on things like starting Jupyter Lab that you and I, if you work with virtual with machine learning, you're probably running Jupyter or you're running Spider. I don't ever launch them from here. I'll show you why. Instead, what I'll usually do is create an environment, and you can manage your environments over here too, which is kind of nice. Like right now, I'm teaching my Baltimore class. So here's everything that is installed in my Baltimore class, and I can start a shell from here and all that great stuff. But I don't do it from here. Let me close this up. Let me show you why. I'm going to just bring up an Anaconda prompt. Oh, and actually, normally I would just, Anaconda, find it here, Anaconda prompt. And I'm not going to start a PowerShell prompt. I mean, that's fine and all if you want to, but I'm going to start it as just an Anaconda prompt. And Jupyter, tweak my past commands. Yeah, I am a huge Jupyter fan. I do tend toward Jupyter Lab over Jupyter Notebook these days, because Jupyter Lab does have a bit more functionality and is a bit newer than Jupyter Notebook. And of course, there is the desktop version of Jupyter these days, though I find myself not using that. I started to and find I don't. I'm actually become a big fan of running my Jupyter notebooks in Visual Studio Code, interestingly enough. Maybe we'll save that for another episode. Hey there, nice to have you, Aditya, I think that is, from Bangalore. Yes, Bangalore is a very nice place. I have been there before. Anyway, so back to my virtual environment. So here I am. I'm at my Conda prompt, and I'm currently in my base environment. So that's what that means. It's just telling you what you're in. In fact, if you're not seeing that, if you're on Linux or on a Mac, it means your Anaconda installation isn't actually completed, and you need to do a conda init somewhere to get that all going. Again, that's more of a troubleshooting thing. You can look that up. But from here, I can begin to use some conda commands like conda end list. Let's see what environments I have. I am currently in base. It's marked with the star. And here are the other ones that I have. The wonderful thing about using these environments, take for instance, Radio Conda, which is not actually a radio station, but I additionally do a bunch of stuff with radio stuff and software-defined radio. And there are some very particular dependencies, some Python libraries I need particular versions of, and versions of Python that it will work with and ones that it won't work with. So in order to be able to do all of my radio stuff without breaking like the stuff I do for reinforcement learning or the stuff that I actually do professionally, it allows me, my professional stuff is here inside of CUDA. It allows me to build an environment that is entirely isolated. In fact, if we were to go into this Anaconda directory, Anaconda 3, and inside of enms, which is really just what it's enumerating here, this is where everything is for the class that I'm teaching right now in Baltimore. And when I'm done working with these folks in Baltimore, I can simply throw this folder in the trash, and that environment is totally gone. I don't have to go finding things in user local lib or worry that I'm breaking some other dependency. I just throw the folder away. And if I want to do some experimentation, maybe I want to try something in Python 3.9 or something, or well, what I can do is I could say, let's conda create. I'm going to create an environment named name that I'll call experimental. And I'd like it to use Python, let's say Python 3.8. And off it goes. So it is going to go and find everything it needs to make that happen. I will tell it, yes, go ahead and do it. And it is now building this virtual environment for me with Python 3.8.12, with pip already installed, everything I need to make this thing work. That's now completed. And inside my env directory, of course, I now have an experimental folder. But how do I use it? Well, to use it, I don't actually have to go here. Let me go back to maybe my desktop. And I'm going to go into my exercises folder. Like I said, I'm actually in the middle of teaching right now, right? So in here, I've got all of the labs for everything from the whole class, and I've got all of the solutions because we give all the solutions for all these things. And let's imagine that I want to use Jupyter. Well, I haven't installed it yet, not in this environment. So I would just do a pip install of Jupyter lab. Off it goes. It goes and gets everything it needs and install. You'll note mine went kind of quickly because it was already cached from other places that I've installed it. And now I can run Jupyter. And that brings me to why I run it in a virtual environment, or why I run it from the command line. Now you'll note mine didn't want to just connect there because I actually have this machine set up to connect to remotely. So let me be explicit to use localhost because I use this for production stuff. So off it goes. No, please don't ever remember that. And there we are in Jupyter Lab. Okay, and I get access to all my stuff. But I can launch that from Anaconda Navigator. In Navigator, I can even switch to the other environment and then click on the Jupyter Lab button. Why don't you do that? Here's why. This is the biggest reason. Because now that this is running, I have a window into how Jupyter is working. And I can see the console errors that are being generated. It is not unusual, at least not in my experience. Maybe I'm doing something wrongly, but in my experience, it is not unusual to be working with Jupyter. Maybe I'm doing some TensorFlow or some Torch thing, and all of a sudden it blows up. And by blow up, I mean Jupyter says, your kernel is restarting. The kernel stops and restarts. I lose all the memory state. What happened? And when I come actually, when I come over here, right? When I come over here, I can see what happened. But if I ran this from the navigator screen, you can't see what happened. There's no log for you to look at. That stuff is gone. But I can see what happened here. And most often it's a memory allocation problem. There seems to me that there is a bug somewhere. And it comes up every couple of days. I run into it. It doesn't happen frequently enough that I've taken the time to track it down. And it's not like, the old days of editing something in Microsoft Word or WordPerfect and it crashes and lose your document, because my Jupyter notebook is still saved. So I'm not losing any data. But there's definitely something up. It's either in TensorFlow or it's in NumPy. I don't really think that, or in sklearn or Jupyter. And I'll end up with these memory errors. And when I look at the error here, I actually wish I had saved one. It's really apparent that there's a memory corruption problem. It's not really an out of memory problem, because when you read the error itself is all kind of munged up and repeats itself. So there's some kind of memory corruption thing. But the bigger point is, if I run it from the navigator, all I know is the kernel crashed, but I have no way to find out why. By running it from here, I can absolutely see why. So John's asking, can you get credit for this? I don't think, maybe I'm wrong. I mean, maybe the on-demand folks can let me know this, or the live stream folks, but I don't think we offer continuing education credit for the live streams. But if you want a certification for the course we teach in machine learning, certainly you could sign up and take that class and work toward that. But no, I don't think we give any continuing education credit. So I hope we don't lose you, John, but I don't think that we do. So in any event, that is why I use these. And you can do similar things using just the VN. So that's the Python version of it. But I tend to prefer this. I do like the Anaconda interface sometimes, the navigator interface, especially for beginners. And I very much like having those curated, stable installs, though I don't use them frequently. The time I usually start embarking on those is when I've got something that requires a dependency and I can't seem to work out the dependency myself using pip. So let's say, for instance, I'm trying to install one library that's going to do some image processing, and I also need Pillow, and now there's a conflict. That version of Pillow doesn't work with that version of the library. And if I can't work that out in just a couple of seconds, at that point, I'm going to switch over and see if there's a Conda install that will kind of bundle all of that up for myself. However, at this point, I'm going to exit out of this and show you just how easy it is to get rid of one of those environments as we wrap this up. All I need to do is then come back here. Let me find myself here. Where am I? I'm in C users and D Hoelzer Anaconda 3. There we are. And let's just go into environments and experimental is toast. Environment is gone. So I have not messed up or changed any of my other environments. Okay, so it's probably still running here somewhere. I think that's this one here. Anyway, I'll go track that thing down. I think I still have a command prompt hanging out in there. But I can totally discard that environment and it's everything is back to clean. I haven't messed up anything else. So that's all I have for you today. It's not a whole lot today. It's a short one. I'm getting ready for vacation. I do hope that you will show some love to my friend Jess Garcia. If you are interested in continuing and following these, if you find them useful, please do like, follow, and subscribe. And remember that the whole reason I'm even talking about this today is that I had a request that came in and said, how do you manage your environment and get that set up? And the answer is I tend to use Miniconda and Anaconda for these reasons, and I use them in these ways. So if you have specific things you'd like me to talk about or cover, feel free to put them in the chat or reach out to me over LinkedIn. Hey there, Manuel. Nice to have you from Spain. And I can tell you that when I'm back in May, what we're going to be looking at is sort of an under the hood look at how machine learning functions. So it's going to be just a little mathy, but not hard. And we're going to show you the rudimentary code. It's actually very few lines of code that can make something into a machine learning algorithm. So look forward to that in May. Other than that, I hope you enjoy your day, enjoy your weekend, and I'll see you the next time.